Yo! Welcome to Garvey's Ghost TV, January 3rd, 2022. We got new things up there, new things down there. Not down there, but right there. And gonna get into a few things before I start. Note that this stream will be on Odyssey and BitChute. So you can watch it there tomorrow, probably after 11 a.m. So there's that. And without further ado, we're going to get into some information. New York, COVID shots. Selma, yes, I said Selma, and some formerly medical misinformation, which apparently is now medical information. So let's go. So first up, we have this refresher, Constitution of the United States of America. For those of you not watching from the United States, we have this thing called the Constitution, which has a couple amendments. And one of them, you should actually look at my broadcast from last year, USSA. I think that was the second broadcast. So that should be December 18th or 20th. So I discuss a lot of the U.S. Constitution there. So if you want a refresher, go there. So I wanted to say the First Amendment is that Congress shall not make any law regarding this free speech. Right? Shall not might not maybe, not unless there is no law. Okay. The 14th Amendment to the Constitution, which for apparently some people on the dissident right don't care for this amendment, even though, I don't know. So the 14th Amendment essentially states that no state can enact laws that negate the rights and privileges of citizens guaranteed by the federal law. Basically, the state can't enact a law that curtails free speech, right, from the First Amendment. Now, the purpose of that law was to deal with, after the Civil War, making sure that the freed Africans were able to enjoy all their rights, because states, which we saw going into the Jim Crow era, would enact these laws that would abridge their rights. Now, the people in Jim Crow era were kind of slick with it, because prior to the Civil War, you had black codes, And they specifically said, Negroes can't do this, Negroes can't do that, they can't be here after this time, and they can't go to this place, they can't have weapons, they can't. So it's just very explicit. So they had to, after that, they got quick. So as an example, the literacy test. So if you couldn't read, of course, freed Africans being denied education couldn't read. So even though the law was blanket for everybody, it impacted one group. So that's an example of states being creative on how they disenfranchise people. So the 14th Amendment is how you get those kind of laws cut. Another example would be the grandfather clauses. If your grandfather could vote, then you can vote. Well, of course, if you're a recently freed African, your grandfather obviously couldn't vote, and that means your children couldn't vote. So you're going 3 generations to knock people out. So that would be, again, a looks like it's level, but impacts one group on purpose. And this is also where we get this desperate impact, which has been taken to a whole other level. And I'm not agreeing with that. I'm just saying that's the source of the whole disparate impact argument that we see. So just want that refresher, because this first piece I'm going to look at. So here, just the news. New York bill would criminalize false statement of facts, likely to endanger the public. Well, first of all, Congress shall not create any law abridging free speech, period. So just on that ground alone, to criminalize speech, which includes saying things that are false. You can say false things all the time. Doesn't make it criminal. And even so, the ones that we have previously for libel, slander, those are civil, not criminal. So this is a whole new step. But this is what happens in lefty land. They just try to incriminate speech. And this is why hate legislation, hate speech is very dangerous and slow going down. You know, you can't have that, because who's going to determine what's a false statement of fact? And we're going to see later where something that's been determined as a false statement of fact turns out to be factual. So this whole false statement of facts thing is politicized. And the way our country was founded with the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, it was to constrain idiots like this and dumb stuff like this. But lefts only want to get their way. And when they see a constraint, they just say, we got to get rid of it, because it impedes their ability to get power. So look at this thing here. What's important, if we look at it, focus on active choices these companies make when implementing algorithms to promote the most controversial and harmful content, right? And this Democratic state, Brad Hoylman, saying the anniversary of the January 6th, we're going to hear about this. It's like, I might have to do a whole different thing on that. Anyway, it would hold tech companies accountable for promoting vaccine misinformation. And hate speech on social media. See, I told you about the hate speech. Yeah, and hate speech is whatever he doesn't like, or whatever YouTube doesn't like, Twitter doesn't like, or Facebook doesn't like. That's the definition of hate speech. I don't like it. And then vaccine misinformation. We're going to see that vaccine misinformation is a really broad thing. So if it ever went to the Supreme Court, it would fall down on being overly broad. But that's another discussion. I've done an hour and a half stuff on that. But see, here we see it says that it's holding companies accountable. But then we scroll down and we see the bill authorizes, right, here we are. The bill authorizes the state's attorney general and lawyers for New York localities to bring state or federal lawsuits to punish violations for individuals, businesses, and associations harmed by violations, to sue for damages, right? So they just want to be able to just sue people because someone claimed that something you said turned out to be false. And somehow they were harmed and it's your fault. Okay. I can't see any way that this could be abused. Absolutely not. I mean, no one has ever thought of a way to abuse laws that let them sue. Never happened. This is why we have the First Amendment and why we have to stand up for it. You protect speech you don't like so you don't get nonsense like this. Moving on. So we're in January of 2022 and folks have gotten 1, 2, 3, and they're still expected to get some more. And this guy is a fourth COVID-19 vaccine shot for people over 60 and to medical staff. Now, it's not going to stop there. No, it's not going to stop there. But you got to ask yourself, 12 months? I was like, no, started in December. So you've got 13 months. 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, at what point do you ask questions? Not to be outdone, Turkey is offering number 5. 5. Only 2 shots, they said. 2 when everything's gonna stop. What did Joe Biden say? Joe Biden says, you won't get COVID. You won't have it. Everything will be all right. That's what Joe Biden said. Please. Okay, that's what he said. But they on the 5th shot. So here's Turkey. I guess they didn't want to get the overdone from Israel, that competition going over there in the Middle East. Right? So they have a domestic one, Turkovac, and of course it's received emergency use approval, which at this point we know is just stamp. Stamp. Everybody wants to get paid. Hey, when you selling, it's like drug sales. One corner boy shows up, there's gonna be more. Because everybody wants to sell. Because a junkie always wants their hit. And here you have 83% people over 18 have received 2 doses of a COVID-19 vaccine, while 91.6% received a single dose. I would think that if you had the first two, 83% and 91.6 who took at least one, so that's right, 91%, let's call it 92% of your population has taken one of these shots. Why? Why are you on 5? Someone would have to answer that question for me, because I wouldn't accept that. You mean number 1, then we're 2, 3, 4. So at this rate, by next January, that's like 10 or 11. That's acceptable to you? Okay. Coming up next. Now, I had mentioned Robert Malone in the previous broadcast. Go back here. All right, I had mentioned him, and I had said that it was really good. If you saw the Joe Rogan interview, it was really good. I saw him on the Dark Horse podcast, videocast, whatever you want to call it. He was far less chatty, but he was far less chatty in the Dark Horse. But since then, he's opened up, I guess, as stuff's got real. So he's really gotten out there. And of course, when lefts get to you, the Stalin picture, I should have picked it up here, but the Stalin picture where he's got his hand in his coat and he's got his boy next to him. I think that's supposed to be Trotsky. Don't quote me on that, but there's a guy next to him. And then when he had a falling out with the guy, he has him removed from the picture like he doesn't exist. And that's what the left does. They just eliminate. Once you fall out, they just like, we're going to cancel you. I don't know if you all saw, I might be aging myself, but I think every Easter they show the 10 Commandments movie with Yul Brynner. Is it Yul? Yeah, Yul Brynner. And 10 Commandments, Moses, the whole thing. And when the Pharaoh gets mad, he's like, I'm going to strike the name Moses from every statue and every tower and every book. Well, they didn't book. Papyri. You will not exist. He said, let my people go. Right? Pharaoh's like, you don't exist. No more. Right? And this is what they do. Right? Because they don't have an argument. They can't rationalize their position with the facts. So when you step out, what they want, and they don't want other people hearing what you have to say, they just go, you don't exist anymore. People can't find you. So go back to here. And what's nice is, so on this side, this guy's got the picture. And what you have is the history of mRNA drugs. So here he goes. In 1989, Robert W. Malone, P. Feldner et al., and for those of you who are not used to academic speech, et al. Is and others. All right. So basically, just note, his name is here. Here's John A. Wolfe et al. The idea of nucleic acid encoded drugs, that's the makeup of DNA and RNA. Direct injection into vitro transcribed IVT, mRNA, or plasmid DNA, pDNA. Not going to go into the science of that right now. It's a bit over, I'll say it's over my head, but a bit more technical for here. The point being, Robert Malone. All right. And oh, there's the picture. There's the picture I was talking about. Let me see if I can scroll it up. Can I scroll it up? There we go. Right. So this is the Stalin picture and his boy who fell out, and they just took him out the picture. And that's what they do. So going back, so this is what Wikipedia. You have to be very careful with Wikipedia. There's Wikipedia before, and now, boom, here's a new one. They just took him out. No names. Yes, no names. The successful transfections in 1989. Now you have to dig into the references with those little these, but that's what they do. They eliminate you so that people can't see you. So if you looked up Robert Malone or mRNA, you wouldn't see his name. You have to look him up directly. And I'm sure right now there is someone deep in the basement that's typing right now, Robert Malone. We're gonna change his entry and make it so that we can say he's an anti-vax conspiracy theorist. That's what they do. So I'm just showing you, real time that these people are manipulating information and data to put them on top because the real data doesn't support them. And this is what they do. So that's that. Now, my next thing I want to talk about. So I have a blog entry where I talk about how this is the time, that's last year, because New York is in segregation. As far as I'm concerned, it's no better than Alabama. And Bull Connor honestly, truly believed that black people voting and mingling was an existential threat to white Alabamans. Okay. Honestly. So I honestly believe that the last mayor and this one now honestly believes that this is an existential threat and this is what they have to do. And that's just not an excuse. It is unconscionable, it's immoral, and for Eric Adams himself, as a black man whose ancestors went through this, should be utterly ashamed of himself for extending discrimination in New York. Shame on you. But I brought this up because I wanted to see this is what the state did to hold people down, to deny them their rights. This is what they did. And now in the world, this is what we're seeing now. Now I want to see if this will play. All right. All right. You see that dog? See the dog? See that dog? Yeah. Dog is mauling somebody. See the police hitting somebody. All right. Stop this. All right. I mean, huh? Now, that didn't happen in America. But I want you to rethink about this. These are people who are being, this is in Amsterdam, beaten, having dogs sicked on them for protesting against discrimination, medical discrimination. I mean, we've seen the transmissibility of Omicron and all the things they've done that has done nothing to stop the big O, not the female O, the big O, from spreading like, I think Barbara Malone was saying it's like measles, really high R value. I think it's like 17 to 20. And these people, for your safety, will put a dog on you, will beat you with sticks, potentially giving you a concussion. And it's for your health and safety. I saw that, and this is what that is. I'll tell you, this is that. This is that. That. That's the same thing. It's the same energy. Same energy. Shame on that government. Shame on them. Shame on the NYPD kicking people out of restaurants. Shame. When you see stuff like this, the answer is, sir, no, sir. But that's what's going on there. So, next topic, Sweden. So, in my blog, which kind of looks like this stuff at the bottom of my, down there, it looks like Garvey's ghost. I had discussed Sweden often. I think I got one thing wrong, which is the second surge. But I was right because I knew that COVID was seasonal, so there would be an uptick. Their uptick was greater than I expected, but it was still there. But what's important is that Sweden didn't do what other countries did up until, I think, December, when they start going into the passport thing, and I think that's a WEF move, WEF. I think they're getting pressured. I think the WEF is pressuring a lot of countries, but that's another conversation. The point here is, if we look at this, and this is, you're looking at Austria and comparing it to Sweden, and you see Austria and Sweden basically have the same deaths, even though Austria went straight gangster, and they're just doing all kinds of stuff over there. And it just goes to show you, when people are saying lockdowns aren't going to help, you're calling it medical misinformation. Here's the chart, right? And so, total COVID mortality. All government interventions have been ineffective and unjustified. That's according to this guy, who is this right in there? I think it's at the bottom. And what's interesting about this piece, if you look at it, the website is Swiss Policy Research, so it's swprs.org. Judgment Day, Sweden vindicated, and that's the web address. So you can see this for yourself. And what they do is they go through and show how the populations are similar numbers, similar age demographics, though I think Sweden is older, density, and obesity rates, which we're going to get to. And then you find that they're basically the same. And there's this principle where if you have two competing hypotheses and the experiment in one has the same results as experiment 2, which has different underlying presuppositions, let's say, then that means your hypothesis is wrong because you can get the same results from something else. Now, let's take that wide because it's kind of like 2 + 2 is 4, but 3 + 1 is 4 too. So it's not that basic. But if you have a thing where you say you must lock down, you must wear masks, and if you do all this, you keep your deaths down, and then some other country doesn't do lockdowns, doesn't do masks, and they have the same result, then you can't say it's the lockdown and masks because you've shown that the opposite has the same effect. And that's what they're showing here, is that you have the same effect. I'm just looking at the data. I'm just saying. So that was an interesting thing. I have a lot of stuff with Sweden, and I think in the end, if justice is served, Sweden will be the model of you all went nuts for no reason, and we showed and we knew what we could do, and y'all just decided to do something else. So that's that one. And now for something that could be considered controversial. So in the beginning, there was this controversy, medical misinformation about this virus originating in a lab. And if you said that, you were being racist, even if you're black like me. So there's a lot of ink spilled and posts made saying that it came from the wet market and there's no way that it could have been created in a lab. It was bats. Batman did it, right? Now, late last year, we find out about the Eco Health Alliance, and suddenly dime turns and all the medical misinformation, conspiracy theorists turned out to be not so conspiracy. Well, now we have some information that looks even stranger. So, from PubMed, evidence for a mouse origin of the SARS-CoV-2 Omicron variant. Mouse? Now, I've said here that since the coronavirus is zoonotic, that is, it can jump from humans to animals and from animals to humans, that this is going to be, is an endemic disease. Because there's always going to be some reservoir where it can mutate, whatever, and keep infecting back and forth. Plus, it's airborne, so you don't need contact. So we have deer in here, New Jersey, that are infected. I mean, how many people are hanging out with deer, right? So that's known. But what's interesting here is mouse, because I don't think they mean rats like New York City rat kind of mouse. So what do they say in this piece? The rapid accumulation of mutations in the SARS-CoV-2 Omicron variant that enabled its outbreak raises questions as to whether its proximal origin occurred in humans or another mammalian host. Now, so far, that doesn't make it, conspiracy. Like I said, this is something that that is zoonotic, and therefore it's going to go into other hosts, and possible that it mutated in some other hosts. So I don't see anything controversial about that statement. Just want to lay that out there. So here we identified 45 points of identified 45-point mutations that Omicron acquired since divergence from B11 lineage. We found that the Omicron spike protein sequence, and I'll stop there. So spike protein, there's two proteins on there, the S1, S2. S1 binds to the ACE receptor, and the S2 kind of turns the key that gets the virus into the cell. So I just want to say, when they're proteins, that's what they're talking about. And vaccines code for the S1 protein. So I just want to make that clear. So they're talking about that spike. It's subject to a stronger positive selection than any of the reported SARS-CoV variants known to evolve persistently in human hosts, suggesting a possibility of host jumping. So, translating, they're saying that the changes to the proteins that make up the spike, maybe S1 and S2, don't look like what they normally see in humans, suggesting that it came from somewhere else, another mammalian species. All right? Just want to translate what we're looking at. Listen to here. The molecular spectrum of mutation, i.e., the relative frequency of the 12 types of base substitutions acquired by the progenitor of Omicron, was significantly different from the spectrum of virus that evolved in human patients, but resembled the spectra associated with virus evolution in a mouse cellular environment. Now, those of us, like me, my degree is in biology, know that a lot of experimentation is done on mice. So seeing this, for us, we're like, someone say mouse? Just saying. Let's continue with the paper. Furthermore, mutations in the Omicron spike protein significantly overlap with SARS-CoV-2 mutations known to promote adaptation to mouse hosts, particularly through enhanced spike protein binding affinity for the mouse cell entry receptor. Collectively, our results suggest that the progenitor of Omicron jumped from humans to mice, rapidly accumulated mutations conducive to infecting that host, then jumped back into humans, indicating an interspecies evolutionary trajectory for the Omicron outbreak. So we have two competing theories. So we already know that the Wuhan lab was doing gain of function research. That's established. We know that. Could they have been doing research with mice? It's possible. I'm not saying they did. Just saying that's possible, because we know that using mice is a common thing in labs. Is it possible that one of these viruses were tested on mice and escaped? Certainly, what they're saying in this paper, that becomes a possibility. Doesn't say it has to be, but it becomes a possibility. But let's say that didn't happen. Well, then we're back to what I was saying before, where because this virus is zoonotic, it will jump from human to some other species and back and forth and back and forth. Meaning, when we were saying last year, no, now it's 2020. So now we're 2 years ago. We were saying this is likely endemic because there will be non-human animal hosts that the virus can infect and mutate in prior to going back to humans. We would have an endemic disease. So this paper underscores that. So we have two possibilities. Naturally jumping back and forth, or made in a lab and escaped, like the first version. I'm not saying that's what happened because I can't prove it. But it's walking like a duck. It's quacking like a duck. And I'm seeing feathers. That's all. So again, for the YouTube people who would want to, PubMed. You got a problem with what I said? Here is the PubMed article. If they retract it, then I'll retract it. Now, the last thing we're going to get into is the thing, or one of the things that got Marjorie Taylor Greene from Twitter, I think, and Facebook, I think. Now, we had said long time ago that the things that were going on, lockdowns, were counterproductive. Didn't make sense. Not at all. And early on, I kind of figured out when I saw that the data coming out of Italy, Iran, early United States, but Italy and Iran, that the people were dying, in addition to being old, were obese and had diabetes. And diabetes and obesity go hand in hand. And so some of us were saying people who were obese were probably going to have a hard time. We were told that's medical misinformation. And we're fat shaming. We're trying to discriminate against overweight people and trying to make them feel bad. No, we're trying to help them. I ran 14.6 miles on New Year's. That's how I started my year. I've been running for 20 years because at one point I hit my heaviest weight, a little bit over 200 pounds. And I saw my gut and I was like, nah, no, I'm not going to be that skinny guy with that belly out to here. No, that's not going to be, I'm not big. So I can't do that. And so I determined, and it didn't take long because I didn't let my get far. But for people who just let themselves go, eating all that high fructose corn syrup, yeah, well, obesity happens. And so, oh yeah, and then during the pandemic, we had Krispy Kreme giving away donuts. Donuts. So anyway, I believe MGT tweeted or made comments that she was in the gym, keeping herself strong so she wouldn't get COVID. Now that part's wrong. Going to the gym, being slim does not keep you from getting COVID. That is medical misinformation. What this deals with is severity. We said there's probably a severity link with obesity, and people who are overweight, and I forget what the BMI line is for that, and it depends on your body type. But generally speaking, if you got control of that, you'd have less chances of severe outcomes. Again, we were told this is medical misinformation. Okay. Now, here's CNN. And just so people know, right? I read across the spectrum. I'm not going to reject you just because I think your news network is not news. Anyway, why losing weight might protect you from COVID-19. Now, people have been getting banned for making this claim. People who are overweight or obese are at a much higher risk of much more severe disease and even death from COVID-19. And one new study suggests that losing weight can reduce risk. How long we've been saying this? How many people called us conspiracy theorists for saying this? And I'm going to go further, because there's this fool online who spends years, and he's from here, talking about how losing weight and exercise doesn't have health benefits. This fool is listened to by people who should know better. And we've been telling them, look, you may not live longer because you never know when your exit date is, but you'll have a better life. All right? You'll feel better, and you'll have less severe disease like avoiding diabetes, or at least putting it off, way off, so you get it in your 70s rather than your 40s. No. This is HBD, and it's all in your genes. Yeah, get your genes in the gym. So anyway, so we've known this, and that's why when Governor Murphy sent his Gestapo to that gym and harassed them, he was dead wrong. Dead wrong. Working out was the best thing you could do in the pandemic. And CNN just said it. So don't get mad at me. Don't tell me I'm spreading misinformation. It's right here. If you mad at me, then you need to censor CNN, every one of their videos. Anyway, the obesity epidemic. How are you going to admit that now? We've been saying that. Has been a threat to Americans' health for years. It's the second leading cause of preventable death after smoking. You remember all those liberals out there who were saying healthcare is a right and no one should be declined healthcare, and right? And then when the pandemic come, here they are after the vaccine. Well, if you didn't take a vaccine, you should be denied health care until all the people who took the shot are okay. And then you might get a bed. And if we treat you, your insurance should decline and you should pay all of it. That's what they said, right? Because you should have taken the shot and not clogged up the ER. Well, here we go, right? They just said it here. The second leading cause of preventable death after smoking. So, by their logic, fat people and smokers should be denied health care if they go to the hospital until people who took care of themselves, went to the gym, didn't smoke, are taken care of. And on top of that, since the obesity was unnecessary and the smoking was unnecessary, the insurance company should decline to pay and they should pay out of pocket. That's the rules, right? That's the rules. If you didn't do what you were supposed to do to be healthy, you should pay. Bet you won't find that anywhere in this piece here. The obesity clinic where Dr. Fatima Cody Stanford works in Boston has a 1,000 plus person wait list that grew a lot longer after the pandemic. Even with more than a dozen specialists on top, it's not enough to meet demand. We are overwhelmed. That's what they said. We are overwhelmed with the volume of patients that really made the connection between obesity and COVID and the need for them to get appropriate care. That's the doctor. I didn't say it. The doctor said there's a connection between obesity and COVID, and they're overwhelmed. So, is this a pandemic of the unvaccinated or a pandemic of the obese? People with obesity are 46% more at risk of getting COVID-19, according to a study from August. It found that they are more at risk of getting really sick, facing a 113% higher chance of being hospitalized, a 74% higher risk of needing to be treated in the ICU, and perhaps most troubling of all, a 48% increased risk of death. So, we got to ask, have these people been trying to kill fat people? Because we've been trying to get people to take care of themselves by going to the gym, working out, and getting healthy, eat right. And we were told, and I had videos pulled for medical misinformation. And here's CNN saying what I said and what a lot of other people said. 2 years later, how many people have died because of the previous medical misinformation, the dietary misinformation. How many people did Krispy Kreme kill with their donuts, their donut giveaways? I'm not saying they killed anybody. That would be slander. I'm just saying, if obesity is a problem and you're offering donuts, maybe you are contributing to the problem. The risk goes up and up with each increase in body mass index, said study co-author Barry Popkin, a distinguished professor of Department of Nutrition at the University of North Carolina Gilling School of Global Public Health. Look, I'm not a distinguished professor of anything. I'm just a former Mac systems tech who was trying to help people by giving them advice. And I'm looking at getting fired in about 2 weeks for telling the truth and standing up for myself and others. And here's CNN saying 2 years later what I've been saying. I'm telling you, y'all need to get disconnected from these mainstream media. They're gonna get you killed. Yeah, I was at my mom's house and she was watching This Week, and I used to watch that program religiously until 2016. And I stopped. And I stopped because I recognized that it was propaganda. And these people were lying or withholding information, Democrat and Republican. And I just wasn't going to sit there and be lied to. It's not going to do it. They're not going to get the Nielsen rating. They're not going to get the this person was chance. And I finally said that. I was like, how do you watch this? Because I've been giving her the information. I'm showing her the stuff. It's like, how do you watch this? Knowing what you know. That's my question to you. How do you still follow these people? Knowing what you know. Knowing what's out there. We're not crazy. We're just telling you the truth. So with that, that's the end of this first edition of Garvey's Ghost TV for 2022. That's a set of twos. One more two when you've got 4 deuces. It's $1,000. 1,000 coins. But anyway, again, I am on Odyssey and BitChute, and this broadcast will probably be there by around 11 o'clock, so you can watch it there. And until then, ting and ting and ting.